Today I talk about the most eventful and important transits of the nodes Rahu and Ketu and the impact that they will have on all of us for the next 18 months. Hello everybody, I'm Tina Chaudhary. Welcome to my channel and a very warm namaste. So for the past 18 months, Rahu and Ketu were transiting in the sign of Taurus and Scorpio. So Rahu was transiting in Taurus and Ketu was transiting in Scorpio. Now around March 20th or so, they've made their transit into the next sign. Now for the next sign, for the nodes, Rahu and Ketu, the next sign doesn't mean a forward sign, it means the backward sign, because Rahu and Ketu always move in a backward motion. So Rahu transited into the sign of Aries and Ketu transited into the sign of Libra. So if you're one of these ascendants, that you're Libra, or Aries sign, whether it's an ascendant sign, or if your moon is in the Aries or Libra, you're going to be impacted quite strongly by the nodes Rahu and Ketu. Now, why is that? Rahu and Ketu are not real planets. They're virtual planets. They're the shadows of the moon. Rahu is the northern shadow of the moon and Ketu is the southern shadow of the moon. And the moon represents our mind and our emotions and our thought processes, what goes through our mind every day. Whatever our mind tells us to do is what our actions will, definitely become. Our mind tells us what we like, what we don't like. Our mind tells us to go there, to come here, do this, tell somebody that. So obviously the mind is very powerful, and hence the moon is very powerful in our charts. It's still considered the most powerful planet of our birth charts because of this reason. And so Rahu and Ketu are the shadows of the moon. Hence they're considered the shadows of our mind. They're the shadows impacting our mind. They're the shadows that impact what goes through our minds. Hence the transits of Rahu and Ketu are extremely important, even though they're not real planets. They're the ones that give us a lot of the events in our life because they're shadowing our mind, they're telling us what to do, and hence they're giving us some of these important events in our life. So Rahu and Ketu are very slow-moving planets. They stay in the same zodiac sign for 18 months. So they were in the last signs for 18 months, and now starting in March, beginning of April, end of March, they're going to move into the sign of Aries and Libra, and they're going to stay there till September 2023, which is next year. So it's going to be for 18 months they're going to stay in these signs. So the nakshatra that right now Rahu is transiting in is Kritika. Kritika is ruled by the sun, and Ketu is transiting in the sign of Vishakha, and Vishakha is ruled by Jupiter. So you know there's a lot of planets that are involved. There's definitely Aries and Libra involved. Aries is ruled by Mars and Libra is ruled by Venus. The nakshatras that are being impacted is Sun and Jupiter. And so of course there's Rahu and Ketu. So we're definitely talking 6 planets that are involved. So most people are going to be having the dasha or the antardasha of one of these planets in the next 18 months. So that's why what happens is, because it's such a long transit and there's so many planets that do end up getting involved, that most of us will feel the impact of the Rahu and Ketu transit sometime during this 18 month. Because during the 18 months, all of us will have different dashas and antardashas that we undergo. And so even if we don't feel the impact right away of Rahu and Ketu, somewhere during this 18-month period, we will feel the impact of Rahu and Ketu's transit. That's why it's a very impactful transit for all of us. It's sometimes I've felt in my career as an astrologer that the transits of Rahu and Ketu give us a lot more effect and impact on us than sometimes the transits of Jupiter and Saturn even though they're very important planets, Jupiter and Saturn are. But Rahu and Ketu messes up your head so much that they give us a lot of different kinds of events. They mess with your head so much that they really change our lives. These planets, Rahu and Ketu, are considered karmic planets. The placement of these planets in our birth chart represent our karmic destinies and our karmic, what we bring from our prior karma. And that's why they're placed in very strategic points in our birth chart that represent some karmic debts. And when they come over, when they transit over wherever house they're transiting over, they bring forth some of these karmic events, and that's why we start thinking in different ways when they, depending upon where they're transiting in our birth chart, and they trigger these karmic events. Hence it's very important to know where the Rahu and Ketu is transiting at any given time. Now, one of the other important things to think about during a Rahu Ketu transit is which natal planet is Rahu and Ketu transiting over. Meaning, if you know your birth chart and you know the placement of planets in your own birth chart, you have to see if there's any planets that are in Aries, in the sign of Aries, and any planets in the sign of Libra. If there are any planets in your birth chart, then they're going to be significantly impacted, and you're going to have a significant impact more than if there was no planets in your birth chart in the sign of Aries and Libra. Because when Rahu transits over any planets in your natal birth chart, it's going to give you significant events and cause a significant impact on you during this 18-month transit. So I'm not going to go over the details of what impacts over what planets it is today, because the video gets really long, but I will give you some basic predictions on the ascendants, all the 12 ascendants, and the impact that it's going to have for all of us. Now, as a general rule, remember that Rahu is transiting over Aries. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, and it's ruled by Mars. So Aries represents new beginnings, new startups, and all things new. It also represented by Mars, so it's dynamic energy, a lot of volatility, and bursts of energy, and aggression as well. So the fact that Rahu is going over Aries now is probably means for the whole world and for all of us, it always means start of something new ideas, something that we want to do. All of a sudden we're going to think of doing something new, depending upon which house it's going over. So we're going to want to do new things. You'll see a lot in the next 18 months. You'll see in the world there'll be a lot of new startups, there'll be a lot of new companies, there'll be a lot of new projects, and a lot of new things coming up. So, you know, people will have all these new ideas of, well, this is what I want to do, and they'll be obsessed about it. Rahu signifies obsession. So, you know, you guys, most of you, depending upon where Rahu is placed or where Aries is in your birth chart, you know, think of new hobbies, new obsessions, all of a sudden new habits, new obsessions. So that's what Aries represents. Now, Ketu is going to be over Libra, and Libra is the 7th sign, and it's ruled by Venus, which is the ruler of our relationships. So Ketu is a very separative, it has a separative tendency. Ketu is a very spiritual planet. It has nothing to do with the materialism in the world, and it doesn't have anything to do with fun or everything that Venus represents. So Venus represents all the fun things in our life, luxuries of the world, material things, relationships, love, and going out and having fun, watching movies, and, you know, the buying luxuries. Ketu is the exact opposite of that. Ketu is spiritual. It wants to move away from material things and move towards spirituality. So you're going to also see rifts in relationships, because it's the complete opposite planet is transiting over Libra. So you're also going to have difficulties in relationships. You're also going to see where you want to move away from relationships. There may be a lot of breakups during this time as well, because you have Ketu over Libra, which is completely opposite. And Ketu has a separative tendency. Ketu also signifies suddenness. So suddenly breaking up, suddenly having a fight and you know, breaking up. And I don't mean just love relationships. I mean any relationship, depending upon where Ketu is. So if it's in the 5th house, and 5th house signifies children, you could have sudden breakups with your children, or sudden fights, and, you know, having a separative tendency. So that's what I mean. So you have to be very watchful during this whole 18 months of not getting into it in your relationships. Don't take relationships for granted. Don't say stuff, you know, that could cause permanent separations. Ketu signifies a permanent separation. So you have to be very careful, nurture relationships very carefully. Don't take relationships for granted, any relationships, friends, siblings, parents, you know, children, love relationships, you know, anything. Definitely not marital relationships. It causes breakup. So that's what Ketu signifies, and that's what you're going to see over the next 18 months. Lots and lots of breakups over all kinds of relationships. So be careful, very careful, watchful over that, regardless of what ascendant sign you are. So those are the significations of you know, general significations of this transit. Now I'm going to make some predictions on all the ascendants. Now just remember, these are very general predictions, and the ascendants that I'm talking about are based on the Vedic, which is sidereal astrology. They are not based on Western astrology, and also these are general predictions. So it also depends on the Antardasha dasha that you're undergoing. And before I forget to tell you, if you haven't subscribed to my channel already, please do subscribe and please share this video with friends and family. And if you like the video, do give me a like. And if there's any other topic on astrology that you'd like me to make a video on, please put it on the comments and I'll try to accommodate you as much as possible. First sign is Aries. Aries, Rahu is going to be transiting in your own ascendant sign, and Ketu is going to be in your 7th house. So the first house is your own self, your own thinking. And so this is going to be a time where you might want to start new things. All of a sudden you have new ideas, out of the box ideas. But at the same time, it's also going to give you some mental confusion, not knowing how to make decisions, completely confused, so to speak. Also, sometimes it gives you a little sleep issues. Now, if there's important decisions you're going to have to make in your life, I would recommend that you don't make them by yourself, because Rahu gives you a lot of mental confusion and frequently a person makes wrong decisions. So ask a person that you trust to give you some good guidance before you make any life-changing decisions. Also, Ketu in the 7th house rules our business relationships, our marriage partner as well, so rules the relationship with our spouse as well. So be very cautious of how you treat your relationships right now. Ketu has a separate tendency and you're going to not be so interested in the relationship. You might have a sense of detachment, like you don't want to have anything to do with that person and you just want to be by yourself and not have so much to do. You're just not going to have interest in that other person. So you have to be very watchful of that, because otherwise you can have issues in your marriage. If you're married, or if you have a business partner, you could have some rifts with that if you fall for that tendency. So be very watchful about your relationships and be very careful of what you're thinking. Also, when Rahu is in the 1st house, you can get fooled by people very easily. Somebody can come around and say, hey, do this or do that, and then you fall for it very easily, because Rahu is also somebody that fools you or deceives you. So you be very watchful of people that come around and deceive you, give you all these great ideas. And so you have to be watchful of that and take very good care of your marriage and also business relationships. Taurus, Rahu has just left your own ascendant house. It was in Taurus and now it's moved to Aries. Now it's going to be in your 12th house. The 12th house indicates expenses of all kinds and also mental disturbances, how you think. So everything that you started when Rahu was in your ascendant house, you would have, a lot of Taurus people started new things, new ventures, new projects, new ideas. And now when Rahu moves to your 12th house, a lot of the Taurus people are going to think about spending money on that venture or something related to whatever they started when Rahu was in the 1st house, the last 18 months. So Taurus people, this is going to be very cautionary for you to watch your spending, because when Rahu goes into the 12th house, it makes you spend so much money, like out of control. Rahu is something that expands the house that it is, and now it's expanding your house of expense. So your expenses are going to go out of control unless you watch. The other thing is, it's looking at your 4th house, which is, it's going to give you the tendency to buy real estate or buy a home or something to do with buying real estate and maybe even relocating from where you live to a new house. Now, I have to caution you that when you do that under a Rahu influence, when you buy a home that you're going to live in under, or any real estate, when you buy it under a Rahu influence, you have to check it very carefully. You have to make sure that it's a good deal, not just a good deal, but the property as such is good, because there could be defects in that property when you buy it under a Rahu influence if you're having a Rahu Dasha Antardasha. But for all Taurus individuals, they have to check any real estate purchases very, very carefully. Also, watch your relationship with your mother at this time. Don't get into arguments with her. Ketu is in your 6th house, and the 6th house relates to legal issues, or it could relate to health issues. So take good care of your health. As long as you have a good health regimen, this is a good time. If you're married, then it's impacting your 7th house, and then there could be any issues that you were undergoing during the last 18 months. There could be some separation unless you take really good care of your marriage partner at this time. So watch your relationship with your marriage partner very, very well. Also, you should really watch your health at this time, because the 6th house Ketu will give you something in your body that nobody can really detect. So it's, you know, something in your, if anything bothers you in your health, I would suggest that you get checked up immediately, because a lot of times Ketu doesn't reveal if there's anything going on with your health. So a little bit of an indication with your health, make sure you get it checked up thoroughly and you take very, very good care of your health. Gemini. Gemini, Rahu is going to be in your 11th house, and the 11th house is the wonderful things. It's the best placement for Rahu. So it means wish fulfillment, desires, your gains from investments, also means your social circle and friends. So Rahu is going to make that all wider, which means you're going to get sudden financial gains. It also means, and you know, expanding of your social network, your friends, you get good gains from them as well. Ketu, on the other hand, is going to be in your 5th house, and the 5th house is your children. So make sure your relationship with your children is very cautious. Don't interfere in their lives, because it's going to have some issues if you do. Ketu is also going to make you not so interested in maintaining those relationships with your children if they're adult children. So you know, you're going to want to stay away from them, let them lead their lives, which is probably the best approach for you that you can have at this time. If you have younger kids, you need to watch their education very carefully, because they're not going to want to be very interested in education. So you're going to have to take good care of them, be very cautious about, you know, their education. The 5th house denotes education. Also, if you're not married and you're in a love relationship, you need to watch this very carefully. The 5th house denotes love relationships, and you know, if you don't take care of your love relationship, there's a, you know, chance that it could not work out well. So make sure you take good care of your love relationships at this time, and also your children, if they're young and they're in the education, they're still getting educated, make sure you take good care of them. But if they're older, you need to leave them alone so you don't break up with them and have a problem in their relationships. Otherwise, this is a very good transit for the Gemini ascendants, because this is very good for financial gains. It's a very good time for investments as well, because your 11th house is getting activated by Rahu, so you're going to see good gains from them. So good time for investments. It's an okay transit for the Geminis. Cancer. Rahu is going to be in your 10th house, and the 10th house is your house of career. So there's good expansion in your career. You could get job, you know, promoted. In fact, a lot of times when Rahu goes over the 10th house, people change their jobs as well, because Rahu likes to mess it up and stir it up a little bit. So you might even change your job, change your position. Even if you're in the same company, you might change your position the next 18 months. So change your position, change your job, do new things, you know, something new. Okay, so that's what that 10th house means. But one of the things you have to be very cautious about is that when Rahu is over your 10th house, it tends to give you an obsession or a tendency to tell people off, because it has that temperament of confusion. So you're possibly going to be very tempted to tell other people off, put them in their place, so to speak. It's a demon planet, okay? So even though it gives you good results, you have to control it, so to speak. So in the 10th house, you need to control yourself so you don't tell other people off, because it's going to give you an inflated ego in the 10th house, is what I'm trying to tell you. Watch that ego at work. You know, make sure you control that ego. Don't tell off your boss. Don't tell off people at work, the superiors. You need to watch that tendency. And if you do, it's going to give you wonderful results in your career. If you're looking to change your job, perfect time, you'll get it. Do what you can, but watch your ego. Now, the problem's going to be that Ketu is going to be in your 4th house, and the 4th house is your domestic happiness, happiness within the 4 walls of your house. And also, if you're very young, then your education. If it's rather young, you know, then it's also your education, also your mother. So you have to watch your relationship with your mom right now. Tell her you love her. Don't get into it with her as well. Also, domestic peace is going to be not unsettled, but you're not going to be interested in it. Your Rahu is going to take you to work and the 10th house, and you're going to be obsessed about work, and you're going to be very disinterested at home. You're really not interested in what's going on at home. You might be disengaged. People might think you're like so out of it at home. And so you have to be very watchful. Otherwise, relationships, whoever's at home, will suffer. So like I said, Ketu is the one that's not interested in the material things or love or, you know, the mushy things that Venus doesn't like that. It tends to take you away from that. So make sure you keep the interest at home. maintained balance. So right now it's really asking you for the next 18 months to pay attention to the work-life balance. It's very important. Otherwise, your balance at home is going to tip, and you're going to lose out on some more important relationships or some happiness at home. It will cost you the happiness at home if you focus most on your career, which the Rahu Ketu transit will make you do. So watch the relationships at home. Make sure you make the work-life balance. Make you do it well, and otherwise, good luck for your career. Leo, Rahu is going to be in your 9th house, and the 9th house denotes your religious beliefs, your dharma, long distance travels, and your relationship with your father. So when Rahu goes in there, Rahu doesn't like spiritual beliefs. It doesn't like religion. It's quite the opposite. It wants to question religion. So you're going to go through the 18 months questioning whether your spiritual beliefs. You may want to even move away from spirituality and say, well, it doesn't even work. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do meditation. I don't want to do prayers. Question your belief in the divine. So Rahu makes you question your belief in the divine a lot. Also, make sure you stay very close to your father, because Rahu tends to obsess over and maybe give your father some health issues also. So make sure you stay very close to your father, take good care of his health. The other thing is it does, the long distance travel. Now make sure that your long distance travel plans are firm, they're good, you've checked everything out, because Rahu is very famous for, whenever you plan long distance, if it's in the 9th house, is change plans at the last minute or while you're in transit. Something will change, keeps changing plans. It likes to do that. That's what Rahu does, is all of a sudden change things. So make sure everything is good. Everything that you're planning for the long distance travel is good. But most importantly, the 9th house is your house of luck. So when Rahu goes there, it destroys the 9th house. It's not a good placement for Rahu, because what it does is it destroys your luck. So you can't depend on good luck to give you things. If you want something, you're going to have to work very hard at it. Ketu is going to be in the 3rd house. So the 3rd house signifies your siblings, your younger siblings, and also your neighbors, and also signifies a short distance travels and your effort. So Ketu is going to not want to have you make effort. It depletes your energy in wanting to make effort to do certain things. And it also, you have to watch your relationship with your siblings very, very carefully, because this is the time when you're going to say something. The 3rd house is communication. This is the time when you're going to say something to your siblings, and there's going to be separation, meaning they're not going to like something you said. Also, short distance travels. So Ketu is the significator of suddenness. So if you make plans to travel short distance, Ketu can suddenly cancel them. If you don't have any plans, all of a sudden you can do a short distance travel. So suddenness is associated with Ketu. So suddenly you will make plans to go here, there, and everywhere and do some short distance travels. And if you have made plans, be prepared. Ketu might just cancel them. I'm not saying that to be mean, but I'm just saying be prepared for anything suddenly to happen with your short distance plans for the short distance travel plans for the next 18 months. Virgo, Rahu is moving into your 8th house, and the 8th house is a house of stress and fears and your mental anxiety. And so you're going to go through the next 18 months worrying about your health. Even if there's nothing wrong with your health, you're just going to worry about it. And that's what the 8th house means. Unknown fears, the unknown worry about longevity, because the 8th house is a house of longevity also. So you're going to worry about certain things. You're just going to worry about your health. You're going to worry about, what's going to be about, what am I going to happen, what's going to happen to me. You're going to worry about that. That's what the 8th house does. Just worry about nothing in general. Even if there's nothing to worry about, you're going to worry about it. And so you have to make sure that you stay calm and composed. Meditation is a great way to overcome the negative effects of Rahu in the 8th house. So make sure you try that if your emotions are getting out of control and you're worrying too much. Also gives you some sleeplessness, because you're worrying so much that you're not able to sleep. So that's the effect of Rahu in the 8th house. Now, if you're in research, if you're doing any sort of research, it's an excellent time for that, because the 8th house denotes research of all kinds. If you're doing anything with research, or if you're in the field of life insurance or something to do benefit from death, so which could be life insurance, or if you're in the business of lotteries or gambling, then this is a good time for that, because that's what the 8th house signifies. It's a good time for that. Now, Ketu is going to be in your second house, and the second house denotes finance, your wealth, your savings, and your family, and also the food that you eat. Ketu is associated with suddenness, things that happen suddenly and out of nowhere, things that you didn't imagine would happen. So this is about your investments and your finance. So all of a sudden, all of a sudden you'll get this idea: let me invest my money here, let me do this with my money, or let me spend it here, or do whatever. Changes in your investment, in your savings, and how to handle your money. All of a sudden, you should guard against that, because this is not a good time, because Rahu is in your 8th house. So, and that also relates to your investment. So you have to think through things carefully. Even though Ketu will want you to do things suddenly related to finance, make sure you don't make any investment decisions suddenly, rashly, without thinking. So the caution here is to think through things very carefully. Also, your family matters. Think through things carefully before you make sudden decisions, or impulsive decisions, or say something impulsively. The second house is your speech. It's very important what you say something, how you say something, and what you say to people within your family. Ketu has a separative tendency, and what you're going to say to people is going to make them completely lose interest in you and walk away from you, cause separation from you in some ways. Even if it's an emotional separation, it will cause it at this time. So you have to watch what you say to people, how you say it. Also, it represents food. So you have to be very careful of the food that you eat. Ketu wants you to eat pure sattvic food. By sattvic, I mean very clean, fresh food. Okay. If you don't, then it's going to make you sick. And that's, Ketu represents pure, clean food. If you can, try to be vegetarian during this time, because when Ketu is over the second house, it doesn't want you to eat non-vegetarian food or food that's stale or stuff like that, because it will definitely make you sick. So watch your food and your diet very carefully. Watch what you say very carefully, because it can cause issues in relationships and your health. So otherwise, also make sure that you invest very wisely and don't make any sudden decisions. Libra, Rahu and Ketu are going to impact you the most, because your own ascendant house is going to be where Ketu is going to be transiting. And in your 7th house, which is directly opposite from you, is where Rahu is going to be transiting. So it's a very important transit for the Libra people. Now, what is this going to do? Because Ketu is going to be over your ascendant house, which is you yourself, your mind, your emotions, your whole feeling is going to be ruled by Ketu. And Ketu is a planet that's not interested in anything. It wants to be alone. It doesn't even have a head, so it doesn't even think of all the things. It only thinks about itself. So right now, you're going to want to be alone. You're not interested in other people. You want privacy. You want to be alone. You don't want anybody bothering you, and you're not interested in the material things of the world. So you'd rather just be by yourself and do your own thing and don't have nobody bother you. And that's the impact of Ketu. But that's very unlike Libra people, because Libra people are ruled by Venus, and that's their ascendant lord, and they like relationships, they like people, they like being around people, they like crowds, they like enjoying the finer things in life. And so this is not going to be who you are really. And so you're going to be very out of your element, and it's not going to make you very happy. So this might not be a very happy time for the Libra people, because it's going to be very contrary to how they normally are in their life. On the other hand, here's Rahu in your 7th house, which is directly from you, which rules your business partnerships. It rules your marriage partners, is Rahu. And Rahu gives obsessive tendencies. It gives confusion. And so your relationships are going to sit there and get really confused by you, going, what is this? What is going on with this person? And also you're going to get obsessed about them, and then you're going to start telling them what to do, because that's what Rahu does. It gets obsessive about the house that it's in. So you're going to forget about yourself, and you're going to obsess about the marriage partner or the business partners, and you're going to start telling them what to do, because this is how you're feeling. And so you're going to transfer those feelings onto your spouse, and you're going to be telling them what to do. Do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. All the while you're completely confused about yourself, and then now you're taking it out on your marriage partner. It's a very, very difficult phase for the Libra ascendants right now, and I think that they really should watch how they're behaving and what they're telling their marriage partners, and how they're telling them to behave, or what they're saying to them in general. Because This is where most of the separations from marriages happen, is during this Rahu Ketu transit. It's a karmic transit for you because it's going over your own ascendant house. You need to be very careful about your own behavior. Control Ketu as much as you can, and don't control the partner. So because this is what's going to happen, is you're not going to be able to control yourself, but you're going to try and control the marriage partner, and this is where things will start to fall apart. Give them love, make sure you support them, give them love, otherwise things could not end up well. Scorpio, Rahu and Ketu have just moved away from your ascendant house and your 7th house. So it was a different time. It was a very karmic time for you guys in the last 18 months. A lot of people had started new relationships or gotten married. And it was a very, like I said, it was a lot of karmic events have transpired in the last 18 months. Now you're starting a completely different phase where Rahu is moving into the 6th house and Ketu is moving into the 12th house. Now Rahu in the 6th house is a good time, or it's a good placement for if you're winning against competition, if you're going against people, meaning if you have a court case, if a legal case, or if you're trying to pay off loans. Rahu is a good placement for that. Now, the problem is going to be that Ketu is in the 12th house, and the 12th house represents expenses of all kinds, high expenses. I don't mean the little expenses, but a lot of expenses, material things, buying expensive things, material things, and having, like I said, spending on a lot of lavish things, and also long distance travels. Now, all of a sudden, Ketu moving in there means that you're not going to be so interested in it. You're going to disconnect from that part of life where the luxuries, spending on luxuries of the world, you're going to start disconnecting from that. And you're going to say, well, that's not important. Let's save money now. It's not a time to splurge. It's time to save, because now you're going to be worried about the future. You weren't in the last 18 months. Now the serious worry about the future is going to start bothering you. And you're not going to be wanting to save anymore. You're going to start becoming less materialistic. And you're going to say, well, yeah, okay, we've had our fun. Now can we save for the future? And that's what's going to bother the marriage. So you need to take very good care of that. You need to make sure that your partner is in sync with that. A lot of times when marriages happen, when Rahu is in the 7th house, is that the expectation of the partners is very different from each other, because Rahu confuses the mind. So a lot of times we pick people that are not the same from us, that they are think very differently from us. So now if there was a marriage that happened when Rahu, in the last 18 months, 2 years, when Rahu was in the 7th house, the reality of the marriage will now, you will see that the expectations of both partners is very different. So you just have to make sure that you stay close to your partner at this time, because what Ketu will do, it will expose the truth of the relationship. It's also a good time for your career, because the 6th house is when you fight against competition, you get something. It's a good time for your career, but you have to watch your relationship carefully, and you have to see what was hidden in that relationship will now be exposed. Sagittarius, Rahu is going to be in your 5th house, and the 5th house denotes all the wonderful things of our life, like our love life. It denotes our children, higher education, having fun, creativity. So it denotes all these beautiful things. And Rahu being there, it actually expands those and makes them even bigger, meaning if you're having, your love life is going to get better. If you're looking for somebody, you're single and looking for somebody, this will be the time you find them. Also, your children will do well, but if they're in the field of education, you have to make sure they stay focused, because Rahu is a great one to get confused, so they will lose focus. So, and if you yourself are in the field of education, you're getting educated, you have to make sure you stay focused, because Rahu likes to get distracted by other things, and it doesn't like education. So you have to keep the focus on education. Now, otherwise, it's all about having fun. Rahu likes to have fun. In fact, it's obsessive about having fun. So you'll have a lot of fun, but make sure that if there's things that you need to get done, if you're in a consulting position or if you're in the field of education, you need to make sure you stay focused. Now, Ketu is going to be in the 11th house, and the 11th house denotes friends, family, gains, and investments. Now that's not a great time for Ketu to be because you feel withdrawn from those people. You're like not even interested in the social circle. You know, you're happy by yourself, which is not a bad thing. It's a great time for spiritual advancement. You know, when Ketu goes into the 11th house, you get really good spiritual gains. Meaning, if you want to start meditation, if you want to start a spiritual practice, it's a wonderful time to do that. You know, you just don't feel interested in wanting to be with people. And that's really not a bad thing at all, in my opinion. Now, you have to watch your investments carefully, because when Ketu is in the 11th house, it doesn't really good a lot of good material gains. So if you're looking for material gains, this is not the time for it. Spiritual gains, wonderful time for it. So and also Ketu denotes suddenness. So make sure you don't do anything sudden related to investments, because it will probably not work out well. So don't make any sudden decisions regarding investments or friendships, because they have a tendency to break at this time. So take good care of those friendships and those relationships, especially with your older siblings. That's what the 11th house denotes as well. Take good care of them and have fun in your love relationships and with your children. Capricorn, Rahu is going to be in your 4th house, and the 4th house denotes your mental happiness, your domestic bliss, things going around in the family, inside the house, and your mother also. And so, and also relocation. So a lot of times I have seen that any time that Rahu comes into your 4th house, you tend to relocate or change houses. Even if you move next door, it wants you to change houses or change where you live. Take good care of your mother's health. Also, one of the things that I've almost always seen when Rahu is in the 4th house, it disturbs you mentally. Mentally, you get very stressed for no reason. You may have no reason at all to be stressed, but the 4th house Rahu always gives a little mental stress where you feel like you're not happy or something's wrong, and nothing is really wrong. But Rahu gives you that mental confusion, because the 4th house represents your mental thoughts, and Rahu represents mental thoughts, but confusing mental thoughts. And so the 4th house Rahu tends to give you, some sort of, it's not a depression, but it's more like I'm confused, I'm not happy, but I don't know what I want, that kind of a mental confusion. And so sometimes people get troubled by those kind of thoughts. So manage your mental thoughts really well, manage your emotions really well. Try to do a lot of meditation, try to do, more spiritual things to get over this thought. But Rahu almost always does that when it goes over the 4th house. I'm not saying there's reason to be worried about. I'm just saying needless worries will bother you. Okay, now Ketu will be in the 10th house, which is your house of career. So if you were looking to change your job, suddenly it will change. So make sure that you're watching for any sudden changes in your career. Ketu denotes suddenness. So you could suddenly lose your job, you could suddenly get a job. If you're looking for a job, what a perfect time, because you could suddenly get a job. So do everything you can, and all of a sudden you'll get a job. This is a good time for job changes. Ketu will always change the status quo. If it literally will change everything in that house that it transits over. So there's going to be a lot of job changes. It's also sometimes Ketu in the 10th house almost always makes you feel like you're very dissatisfied in the position you're in. I don't want to do this anymore, sort of thing. And for no reason. I mean, you could be very good at it, but Ketu almost wants you to change your profession, change your work, change something about your career or work when it transits over your 10th house. Disinterest in your work. I don't even want to work anymore. Those are the kind of thoughts that Ketu in the 10th house does. Guard against those, manage those well. The only thing that works is meditation. Believe in the divine, in whoever you choose to believe in, and manage these thought processes very carefully, because Rahu and Ketu love to change things. They don't like the status quo. They like to change things, and Ketu does it very suddenly. So make sure you manage your thought process. Make sure you have emotional stability, no matter how you get it. Through love, through support, through meditation, through the faith in the divine, anything that works for you. But you have to manage your thought process very carefully at this time. Aquarius, Rahu is going to be in your 3rd house, and Ketu is going to be in your 9th house. And if I was going to be handing out awards for which ascendant is the best placement for Rahu Ketu, Aquarius is going to win that award. And you know what? Aquarius deserves to win the best award, because they've suffered and suffered for 2 years. And so now they get the award for the best placement for Rahu Ketu. Why? because the third house is the house of self-effort. It's the house of dedication, hard work, and rewards as a result of your hard works, and initiating new things. And Rahu's over there. So it expands the energy that you need to start something new efforts. Dedication and self-effort is going to be multiplied by Rahu in the third house. Rahu's placement is very good in the third house. So the Aquarius individuals are going to start new things. They're going to have a burst of energy. They're going to feel confident. Everything good in the third house because of Rahu's multiplying impact of the third house, which is, like I said, effort, energy, initiative on doing things. So that's a good thing. The only thing that's bad about Rahu being in the third house is relationship with your younger siblings. Watch what you say to them, or there could be, issues with them. They could not like you for something that you say. So that's the only caution for the third house. Now, Ketu is in the ninth house. Not long distance travel. The ninth house is the house of luck. Long distance travel, your father, and also education. So a lot of the Aquarius individuals, I feel, will probably make a long distance trip for some spiritual reason. For spiritual reasons or for religious reasons. So the ninth house also is your divine. So if you make a long distance trip, it's going to be for religious, spiritual reasons. So, but Ketu also denotes suddenness. So there could be sudden things that happen in that travel. So you have to make sure all your travel plans are very well done, there's nothing wrong, there's nothing missing, because Ketu is very famous for suddenly changing something. So make sure you do that. Now, the ninth house also denotes your spirituality. And who's the famous planet that denotes spirituality? It's Ketu. So Ketu in the ninth house is almost saying that if you want to unlock your luck factor in everything, all you have to do is believe in the divine, believe in the faith, anybody that you believe in, your guru, divine, the universe, energy, whatever it is that you believe in it right now, because Ketu's right there in the ninth house, willing to give you that key, unlock it, and your good luck starts to unfold. Take good care of your father, though. Last but not the least, Pisces. Pisces, Rahu is going to be in your second house, and the second house denotes finances. It denotes family. It also denotes the food that you eat. So for Rahu to be in your second house, you have to be very, very cautious about your finances and how you spend them, how you utilize them, and how you invest them. And this is the perfect time when Rahu also denotes deception, people that deceive you. It's a very this time could be where somebody comes you and deceives you on how to invest your money, how to spend your money. You have to be very, very careful about fraud and deception at this time. So make sure that all your investments, your money is controlled tightly. You don't just spend it or invest it based on somebody telling you how to do it. You investigate it properly, because like I said, Rahu means deception. It also denotes family, and so Rahu is a very destructive sort of a planet. It's a confusion destructive planet. Make sure you watch your relationships with your family very carefully at this time, and it's speech also. So make sure what you say to your family, you watch it carefully. You don't burn your bridges with them, and make sure you keep close to your family. Otherwise, relationships could, get scarred for a while. The food that you eat is very important at this time. So don't get obsessive about food right now. Rahu gets obsessive about things. So you could get obsessive about a certain diet, a fad diet, or trying these faddish things and getting obsessive about certain foods, diets, things like that. Make sure you watch for that, because that's not something that's going to end well for you. So make sure you stay in control of your diet, eat well. Now, the problem is that Ketu is in your 8th house, and the 8th house is always a little difficult house where it denotes sudden things, first of all, and the 8th house is already it denotes sudden events, sudden not good events. So you have to be very cautious of how you invest your money again. So the 8th house is again a problem with the investments. So I'm cautioning the Pisces people that how they're investing money. There could be some issues with inheritance money. There could be issues with insurance money. There could be issues with, if you sell property, there could be some insurance problem with that money. So there's a lot of problems with money that I see with the Rahu Ketu transit for Pisces people, and how they invest the money, and the finances are very uncertain at this time, and so is their health. So the 8th house is your health. Suddenly something could go wrong with their health, so make sure you watch what you eat, like I said already, very carefully, and take good care of your health. 8th house also denotes your health, and Ketu is suddenness. So the minute you feel something is wrong with you or you're not feeling well, make sure you get it checked out immediately, because Ketu actually hides certain things. It doesn't reveal itself very well. So make sure you get yourself thoroughly checked out if you're not feeling well, just to make sure everything is good. And otherwise, stay healthy, take good care of yourselves, and manage your finances well. And this brings me to the end of my video. I hope everybody has a wonderful Rahu Ketu transit. It's a long transit, but good luck, and see you on my next video. Goodbye and stay safe.